Hello everyone. In this video I am going to explain the Ajax concept. First we will see an example and then we will go to the details of the Ajax concept. Provide any name and click on make Ajax request. Observe this text field carefully. You can see that we received welcome message from the server, so we will give another name and try. Click on make Ajax request. You can see that we get a welcome message from the server. Now we will go to the details of the Ajax concept. The main advantage of Ajax functionality is earlier, to update part of the page we are going to submit the form and we will reload the entire page. Instead of reloading the entire page, for updating small part of the page using Ajax, we need not reload the entire page. Reloading the entire page involves many database calls and the reloading of many images, which will take unnecessary time. The basic concept of our advantage of the Ajax functionality is, for updating small part of the web page, why we need to reload the entire page unnecessarily. By making the usage of Ajax, we need not reload the entire page, just we will update the part which is required. Now we will see points and the steps how to create the Ajax request. We will discuss each step one by one. Okay, the main object we use is XML HTTP request object. First we will discuss about this object. This object is main in Ajax functionality. Using this XML HTTP request object, we will send the request to the server. Okay, so the first step in Ajax is creating the XML HTTP request object. The XML HTTP request object creation will depend on browser to browser. It varies from browser to browser. In earlier versions, we use ActiveX object to create the XML HTTP request for IE older versions. In the newer versions, we create this object by simply saying new XML HTTP request. So we create this object to send the request to the server. To send the request to the server, what we need to specify whether we are making get request or post request. So we have to specify the get or post while making the Ajax request. And finally, what is the page on the server side to which we are making the request. It can be a JSP, it can be a servlet, or any server side object. Object in a sense JSP or servlet, anything that can process. So this is the URL or the page. Suppose in the server side, if Ajax processor.jsp is the page to which you are sending the request, we need to specify that. So basically we have to create the object, we have to specify if we are using or making the get request or post request, and the third one we have to specify is the URL. Okay, so once we ask Ajax to send a request to the server will take some time to process, right? When we make the request to the server, there is a property called ready state in XML HTTP object. Okay, this ready state changes from one value to another. That means we will see what are those values. You can see details. When we make the request to this server side page or servlet, the request first, this ready state will track the status of the request processing. First, the request will be not initialized. Then you can understand easily, right? We need to establish the connection with the server. So this ready state changes from 0 to 1, and then the request will be received by the server. So this value in the XML HTTP request object changes from 1 to 2, and then 2 to 3, means the server received the request from the Ajax and the server is processing the request. Then the ready state value will be 3, and finally when the processing is completed by the server, the ready state will be 4. And this is the use of ready state. Whenever this value changes from one value to another, we will be notified. We have to write a function that will be called by the Ajax automatically whenever this value changes from one value to another. Okay, suppose we have to assign that function to the onReadyStateChange property in the XML HTTP object. There is a property called onReadyStateChange property in XML HTTP object. Okay, whenever this value changes from one value to another, actually for this property we have to assign a function, a JavaScript function. Then what will happen is, whenever this value changes from one value to another, automatically the function which we have assigned to this onReadyStateChange property gets called automatically. But that function, once the ready state is 4, means processing is completed and the server sent a response. So what we have to do is, in that function we have to add a condition saying that if the processing is completed by the server and the status is 200, that means the server processed the request sent by the Ajax and it has given a response back to client. Okay, the response given by the server can be accessed through response text property in the XML HTTP. That means whenever we make a request to the JSP, okay, the ready state in the XML HTTP tracks the processing status. That means it will change value from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. Whenever the value changes from one value to another, a function which we have assigned to onReadyStateChange will be called automatically. So this function gets called many times, but we have to process, or we will get the response only when the request processing is completed. That means only when ready state becomes 4, the server processed and sent the response to the client. So we have to add this condition, otherwise if we access this property it will be undefined, because if you call this XML HTTP response text when the value is 0, 1, 2 or 3, since the processing is not yet completed by the server, you cannot get the response. So add this condition in the function you have defined, and in that function you can get the receive the response received by the server using response text property, and using this response we will update the page using document.getElementById.innerHTML. We can process that response and update the web page without reloading using the JavaScript techniques. Okay, now hope you understand. Now we will go to the working example. We will add another thing. Next, we have to define a function and assign to onReady state change property in XML HTTP request. This function gets called whenever the ready state changes from one value to another, but only when the ready state is 4, then processing is completed, and we have to use the response text that is received by the server. Okay, now we will see all these steps one by one through a working example. Okay, whenever you give some value and click on make Ajax request, we will go to this page client.jsp and see the working example. So what I have done, I have given one text field for entering your name and another text field to store the response received from the server side. Okay, this will be populated after we hit the make Ajax request button. If there is an error, that will be populated in the another text field called error message. When we click on make Ajax request, we are calling a function make Ajax request. As I said, we have to create the XML HTTP request. As I have already said, this HTTP request object creation varies from the older versions to newer version. This if-else condition is to create based on the browsers. In the older versions of IE, we have to create like this, and in the newer versions we will create using new XML HTTP request object. Okay, and now what I have said, we have to specify whether we are using get or post, and then we have to specify the server side JSP or servlet which process your HTTP request. Once you make the send call, then the Ajax will make HTTP request to the server side.jsp. If you see this, when you click make Ajax request, I am retrieving the value you entered, means your name, using the JavaScript, and I am sending your name to the JSP. You know, right, in the JSP servers we will send using form, right? In the same way, using the value retrieved from the text field, I am sending that value to the server side.jsp. So your request will go to the server. Okay, as I have already said, you have to register a function. This is called anonymous function because this function is not having any name. Okay, we have to register a function with the onReady state change property of XML HTTP. So this function will be called automatically whenever the ready state changes from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, like that. But only when the ready state is 4 and status is 200, then it means the server received the request, means server side.jsp received the request, it processed the request and sent the response. That response can be retrieved using response text property of the XML HTTP. What I have done, I am passing that value to the another JavaScript function. In that function, just I am updating. You can see, right, there is a I am updating this page in this function. Whatever the value I got from the server, I am updating that value into the second text field. That is what I am doing. I got the object of the second text field and I am updating value of that second text field with the response text I received from the server side.jsp. Let us see what I have done in the server side.jsp. Just to the server side, while making the request, you are passing the name you have entered in the first text field. Okay, now we will see. I did not do a complex logic, just I retrieved the name you have entered in the first text field. Okay, you have sent this name while making the HTTP request to this server side.jsp. Just I am appending welcome to Java Learners Ajax section to the name we received from the HTTP request. Okay, the advantage of this response.setHeader cache control is, if you don't set this, sometimes what happens is, even though you enter the new name, suppose when you enter the Hari, it will say Hari welcome to Java Learners Ajax session. But if you don't set that value, sometimes what will happen is, even if you change to some other name, it still shows the old message, means it gets the message which is cached. So to say that not to cache the previous message, we will say this header. Then what will happen is, whenever a new request is made, a new response will be generated instead of no caching will be done, so we don't get old message. Okay, we will see, we will change it. Hari, can you see Hari welcome to, can you say Rajesh? Click on make Ajax request, we will get Rajesh. So without reloading the page, using the Ajax functionality, I updated the page. Okay, in the real time what we can do is, if there is a state and cities drop box, if you change the state in the, we have to make a Ajax request passing the state, and in this server side component make a DAO call and get the cities of that state and pass those to the client, and in the client we can update that cities using your JavaScript logic. Okay, let us revise all the points we have discussed. First, we have to create the XML HTTP object. We have to specify the get or post. We have to specify the server side thing which will process the request sent by the Ajax. Okay, whenever the request is sent to the server, the ready state property in the XML HTTP object changes from one value to another. Okay, whenever we have to register a function, JavaScript function, with the on ready state change property. So whenever this ready state changes from one value to another, the function you registered with this on ready state change property gets called automatically. But you have to remember that you can access the response text from the server side only when the request is completed, right? Only when the server sent the response you can get it. So by using this condition, we can make sure that the server processed the request and sent the response to the client. So that is the reason I have kept this condition. This is called anonymous function, means a function without any name. This is also called callback function, because whenever the response is received, I mean whenever the ready state changes from one value to another, it gets automatically called. That is why it is called callback function. It will be called automatically without you making any call. That is why it's called callback function. Okay, hope you understand. Thank you.